Investors and crypto insiders, what I'm about to reveal is shaking the XRP community and being almost completely ignored by mainstream media, yet it could redefine the future of digital assets forever. Jake Claver, a figure with serious credibility in crypto analysis, has just made a surprising comment linking XRP and BlackRock, and the implications are far more structural than casual observers realize. This changes everything, because when an influential analyst signals attention, it triggers a chain reaction that no chart, headline, or algorithm can fully capture. WTF is happening behind the scenes that the public isn't seeing? Why are institutions like BlackRock, the SEC, IMF, and top-tier banks quietly analyzing XRP while retail chatter obsessively focuses on short-term price swings? Prepare for shock, because this is not about hype. It's about operational adoption, institutional alignment, and systemic relevance quietly unfolding. Before we dive deeper, hit like, subscribe, and turn on notifications, because this is the type of insider insight mainstream media will never deliver. XRP is no longer just a token, it is an emerging infrastructure asset being considered for high-volume, compliant cross-border liquidity, institutional settlement corridors, and even AI-enhanced operational systems. What appears to casual observers as speculation is actually structural momentum, and the signals are screaming for attention. Ask yourself, if XRP were irrelevant, would Jake Claver dedicate analysis to it? Would global banks, national regulators, and financial institutions continue tracking Ripple's developments closely? Timing is everything, and the next moves are already being executed quietly, far beyond charts and social media noise. Now let's break down the data and authority that make Jake Claver's comments so explosive, because this is where the story moves from speculation into structural insight. XRP has repeatedly demonstrated operational readiness through live RippleNet corridors, on-demand liquidity adoption, and real-world institutional integrations, proving it can handle high-volume, compliant transactions at scale. Regulatory clarity is gradually improving, with ongoing SEC developments reducing legal uncertainty, perfectly timed with accelerating institutional interest. The authority here cannot be overstated. Jake Claver has a track record of accurate, forward-looking crypto insights, while BlackRock's continued exploration of digital assets signals serious institutional consideration. Top-tier banks and national regulators are observing XRP closely, and private discussions internally reference Ripple as a bridge for cross-border liquidity. Ask yourself, why would Claver highlight XRP if it were insignificant? Why do major financial actors persist in evaluating Ripple's infrastructure quietly? The answer is clear. Structural relevance is forming, and ignoring it could be costly. Operational adoption is a massive piece of the puzzle. RippleNet continues expanding across Europe, Asia, and the Middle East, embedding XRP into real-world liquidity corridors and stress testing it under actual market conditions. Institutional trials, private integrations, and compliance frameworks demonstrate that XRP is far more than a speculative token. It is infrastructure capable of supporting complex operational models. Meanwhile, retail investors remain fixated on price charts and hype, oblivious to the structural momentum quietly building. XRP is transitioning from perceived volatility to systemic utility, and those who recognize these signals early stand to gain a generational advantage. This is not hype, it is the factual intersection of authority, adoption, and timing, shaping the next major market move. Now we enter the critical phase where catalysts and FUD collide, because every asymmetric opportunity passes through a period where the noise is louder than the signal, and uninformed investors are actively misled. The catalyst here is subtle but monumental. Institutional alignment, operational adoption, and regulatory clarity are all converging simultaneously, and XRP sits squarely at the epicenter. Imagine RippleNet corridors scaling fully, ODL adoption ramping up, and AI-enhanced liquidity systems quietly integrating XRP behind the scenes. When these pieces come together, the market reaction will not be gradual. It will be sudden, violent, and nearly impossible to ignore. This is the type of catalyst that arrives quietly, flipping switches behind closed doors, only noticeable once the effects are irreversible. Prepare for shock, because this is exactly how systemic financial moves unfold, and most investors are still distracted by social media noise and short-term charts. And now the FUD defense, because doubt will arrive in waves. Critics will scream that XRP is centralized, that regulatory uncertainty remains, that institutions will never rely on a token, and that nothing is happening because price action is quiet. That is exactly what was said about Bitcoin before ETFs. Amazon before cloud dominance, and AI before it became infrastructure. Institutions do not need headlines to validate usage. They operate quietly, efficiently, and under regulatory oversight. XRP has been stress tested across real corridors, compliance is baked in, and operational risk is mitigated. Centralization arguments collapse under regulatory scrutiny, and transparency criticisms vanish when transparency becomes a designed feature, not a flaw. Ask yourself, why did the SEC fight so hard if XRP were irrelevant? Why did Ripple continue global expansion instead of folding? WTF do people expect convergence to look like? Headlines and fireworks? The reality is far quieter, far more insidious, and far more profitable for those positioned early. Now we arrive at the price justification and final warning, because this is where structural reality meets market mechanics, and the implications become unavoidable. XRP is not being priced like a speculative altcoin. It is being positioned as systemic infrastructure capable of powering cross-border liquidity, institutional settlement corridors, and AI-enhanced operational models. Consider the magnitude: trillions in daily cross-border transactions, algorithmic liquidity flows, and legacy system inefficiencies creating massive demand for speed, compliance, and reliability. XRP is uniquely designed as a neutral, high-speed bridge capable of executing these flows efficiently, securely, and under regulatory oversight. BlackRock, JP Morgan, and other institutional giants do not allocate capital to uncertainty, and Ripple's survival through regulatory scrutiny, combined with operational proof points, positions XRP as one of the few assets ready to meet this emerging demand. $100 is not fantasy. It is the structural entry point for informed actors before adoption, AI integration, and corridor expansion trigger a massive revaluation. Timing is everything. XRP exists in a narrow window where institutional alignment, operational adoption, and regulatory clarity converge. Hesitation, disbelief, or delay could mean missing a generational asymmetric opportunity. Mainstream media will continue to ignore or dismiss this because they cannot simplify a structural institutional narrative into headlines. Ripple is embedding quietly into real-world systems. AI applications are being considered for liquidity management, and regulatory developments remove lingering uncertainty that once kept cautious players on the sidelines. When this convergence manifests fully, price will not move gradually. It will react violently to adoption, AI deployment, and institutional demand. Those who dismiss XRP now will later ask how they missed the structural signals, and the answer will be painfully obvious. You ignored authority, infrastructure, and timing. This is your final warning. The window for strategic positioning is closing. XRP's next phase is about unavoidable systemic relevance, and even subtle AI and institutional alignment magnifies the stakes. You are either strategically positioned to benefit from this convergence, or you are watching from the sidelines as others capture generational gains. Timing, authority, and operational readiness are all here, and the next chapter for XRP is already underway. In conclusion, what is unfolding with XRP is far beyond ordinary speculation. It is a structural, institutional, and technological convergence quietly reshaping the global financial landscape. Jake Claver's surprising commentary, coupled with growing attention from BlackRock, top-tier banks, and regulatory observers, signals a relevance and momentum that mainstream media cannot and will not convey. XRP is evolving from a digital token into operational infrastructure capable of powering cross-border liquidity, institutional settlements, and AI-enhanced financial operations. This changes everything because the market is on the cusp of a silent but monumental shift, where adoption, regulatory clarity, and institutional alignment converge into unstoppable momentum. This is your moment to act decisively. XRP's corridors are live, institutional interest is accelerating, and regulatory risk is diminishing. Those who understand the structural setup and position accordingly will gain a generational advantage, while those who hesitate will watch from the sidelines as this quietly powerful asset moves towards systemic relevance. Timing is everything. Clarity is power, and XRP's next chapter is already in motion. Position wisely, act decisively, and do not let this opportunity slip through your fingers.